Hey guys, so this channel is for kindergarten, first and second grade teachers that really want to empower their learners in blended learning. And so today we're focusing on the 6 reasons why you should use digital choice boards in your blended learning classroom. The first video I did talked about kind of an introduction to blended learning. And then the second one talked about flexible seating, because I think blended learning and flexible seating just go hand in hand. But I also think that if you use digital choice boards, that all 3 of those things can come together in a really powerful way. So let's talk about digital choice boards. So reason number 1 to use a digital choice board is student choice. So with digital choice boards, basically students get to choose which order they complete assignments in. So let me know if this sounds like something that you experienced in your classroom before. Okay, so heterogeneous centers are important for learning. And so you put like a high, middle, and low kid in groups together to rotate through centers. But then you struggle with being able to pull your small groups, right? Because then you're pulling kids out of centers and they're missing this center and they're missing that center and you're trying to manage that and it's too much. And then what happens if you try to put 4 learners per group, because then you have even numbers, you have partners that can work together, but there's an odd number of students, right? And then students might be rotating through centers where they're not really engaged in the centers, even if they're differentiated at their level. If each center has, a low, medium, and high activity that can be done, they're still not really engaged in it. So what happens is I shifted from center-focused classrooms to choice board-focused classrooms. And what I noticed that my students were more engaged. Right? So when I let them pick what they wanted to do in what order, they felt empowered by that. And here's the other thing. You're setting up systems in your classroom where then they get to decide, okay, I need a partner for this. So I'm learning how to communicate. Hey, I know that my friend Jose is a really strong reader and I need to focus on my sight words right now. I'm going to go ask Jose if he can help me with my sight words. And so you're seeing students developing this community within your classroom without you kind of micromanaging with centers, but you're seeing them make those choices for themselves. And so really powerful. And so now you don't have to worry about odd number of students. Now you don't have to worry about heterogeneous, homogeneous groups of students because they're actually driving their own learning during center time now. And so student choice is huge with digital choice boards or even paper choice boards. It made such a big difference when I started to do that. Reason number 2 is student-driven differentiation. Now, before I started using digital choice boards, I used a lot of sticky notes. And my sticky notes would be to show students what level they were at for each activity that they were completing. And so what level they're at for reading books, what level they're at for writing, what level they're at for spelling words. Like each area was differentiated, which takes a lot of time. And especially in kindergarten, first and second grade, kids switch levels all the time, right? Their spelling level might not correlate with their writing level and it changes constantly. So if you can set up a system where it's student-driven differentiation, then they're getting to a place where they're learning how to recognize where their level is and they're making choices based on their level. And so when you have digital choice boards, what's happening is they have an activity, like maybe it is sight words, but what is happening is they're picking sight words and then they're able to either read their slides of sight words to be able to read the words themselves, or if they know they need more assistance, they're able to actually click on videos where the sight words are being read to them. So they're differentiating. For writing, they can differentiate by either being able to read the passage and being able to respond, or listening to the directions and then responding. And if you use thinking maps with writing, again, they're able to differentiate even more, because when you ask them to use thinking maps with their writing, then they're moving into writing 1 sentence or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 sentences. First graders, second graders, or kindergartners. And they're differentiating that for themselves. Now, I know that this is kind of a big concept, and so I'm actually going to do a later video that talks all about student-driven differentiation, because there's a lot to it. But basically, digital choice words help to really drive student-driven differentiation. The next thing about digital choice boards, reason number 3, is hyperlink. So before digital choice boards, everything was in different places. Everything that students needed to find were in different places. And so the math games were over here, the reading games were over here, the note cards were over here, the sight words are over here, right? And so it's all in different areas. Now, with hyperlinks, love hyperlinks in Google Slides, because now all of their centers, all of their activities are embedded into these digital choice boards. And so what's happening is they're able to click on these hyperlinks and be sent to a resource or an activity within this choice board. And so if they see on their choice board, if it's sight words, they click on sight words, and then it'll show them, okay, do you want to read the words or do you want video words, right? And then they can make that option. And then while they're making that option, they're able to get out some note cards and make some flashcards, or get out some magnetic letters and start to form their words with magnetic letters. But again, the sight words are all embedded there. They're not looking for a folder that has the sight words within them. So hyperlinks help to keep everything in one place for the learners. Now, that leads me to reason number 4, which is that choice boards can have embedded videos. Now, this means that if a student doesn't remember the directions of an activity, they click on like a question mark, and it'll bring them to a video that explains the directions again. Before I use digital choice boards, if a student forgot what to do for an activity, not all students, but we all, some students, throw themselves on the floor, crying, kicking, frustrated, need to go regulate in the regulation corner. Like, it's a big thing, right? Because they're so overwhelmed that they, 1, can't read, that they, 2, they can't remember what to do, and they're overwhelmed, right? And so this eliminates that. It also helps them because it reinforces a skill. So let's say they don't understand how to add tens, or maybe they don't understand fact families, right? They click on the question mark, brings them to a video, a short video that talks about fact families. So then they can be like, oh yeah, I remember this now. And then they go back and complete the activity. And so it's a kind of review for them as well. Now, reason number 5 might be my favorite, is no lost papers. Okay. So we've all been there, you know, Miss Fox and I can't find my paper anywhere, right? You're like, did you check your cubby? Yes, I checked my cubby. Is it the, you know, bright green paper in your cubby that I see right now? Oh, I looked there, Miss Loxlin, but I didn't see it, right? That's what I get all the time. So even if you were to print out this choice board on a really colorful piece of paper so they couldn't lose it, students will lose papers. It just happens. So if it's digital, if it's on their computers, they can't lose it. It's there. It's there forever. So you don't have any more lost papers and lost time with papers. You don't have to worry about, okay, I have 100 copies a month, so I can only print out the exact number of choice boards per week, and I can't make copies unless I really need to, but you know you're going to need to, and it's just too much. So no lost papers is amazing. And then lastly, reason number 6, centers are now accessible at home. So now if a student isn't completing their center work, it's really easy to show the parents what they're completing and not completing, because if you use a digital choice board and all the activities are done on that choice board, the parents are seeing what they're completing every single day. So now if they don't complete something, it's easy to say, hey, this is your homework. Or if they're out, if they're absent, especially right now with COVID and Delta variants and craziness, if they have to be out for a couple weeks, guess what? It's done. They have their digital choice board. This is giving them differentiated instruction and review. And you can do this in reading and math. And I've actually created all of them for reading and math for first grade. Second grade, I have almost all of reading done for the whole year. So you could be done with centers for the entire year. No prep at all, which to me, I'm like, that's awesome, right? So you're having students make choices. There's no lost papers. There's no printing. There's no prep except that you need to assign it in Google Classroom. It can be accessible from home. And it's differentiated because it'll read the directions to the students. And if they don't understand a concept, it'll bring them to a video that explains the concept to them. I mean, it sounds perfect. And then what the teacher gets to do is they just get to focus on their small group time. Because for me, that's the most amazing thing, is sitting in my small group and being able to really engage with my students, maybe 4, maybe 5 students on their level, and really move them. That's where I really move my students, is in small group. And then the beauty of providing your students with choices, the thing that I just loved so much was when I had finished up a small group, right? And I sat back for a second and I looked around my classroom and I saw these first graders that were legitimately running the classroom and driving their own learning independently. They were picking how long they were spending at each activity. They were using timers to help with time management. If they needed time to regulate, they were recognizing that and going to the regulation corner to be able to regulate and go back and work. Not saying that there wasn't issues, not saying that we didn't have to have a lot of conversations, but it's amazing to see. So I would love to hear if you have been trying to implement this in your classroom. How is that going? What are you doing that you think would be helpful for other teachers to know about with blended learning and digital choice boards? And I will make sure to link the digital choice boards down below. I also have a link to a free resource library that I'm going to be adding some free resources for blended learning and student-driven differentiation, so you can get that below too. But I would love to hear more about how you're implementing these things in your classroom. So I'll keep these videos coming about blended learning and empowering students. Yeah, it's exciting. I hope